Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this special techFLIX edition, where we want to essentially talk about the impact of COVID on digital industry. And in this episode, we will specifically talk about the telecom industry in India. Uh, we have an eminent panel representing, I think, the entire spectrum of telecom. Uh, the idea and objective of this is to kind of look at where we stand right now and what are some of the long-term implications of this entire scenario, how it's going to change telecom for good, and how do we kind of prepare for that. So before I kind of start formally, I would just request the audience, if you have any kind of questions, we will be taking them towards the end of the session. And you could, send your questions to me through chat, and I will be kind of moderating all the questions for you. No panelist will be answering your question directly. Just to briefly introduce, who always are kind of enabling this. From techARC side, I'm very thankful to Rajan and COAI especially, who agreed to kind of collaborate on this and work together on this special webinar. I think for a startup, it's really encouraging that you all are here. You have given your time, so I would thank you as well as your respective organizations. I'm very thankful to Communications today for joining us as a media partner. And last but not least, very thankful to Cisco and Samir Garde in person, who really took a very last minute kind of initiative to help us be on this panel today. So we just introducing everyone for the audience. We have Rajan Mathews, Director General, COAI. We have B. Balaji, Chief Regulatory Officer and Corporate Affairs Officer for Vodafone India, Vodafone Idea Limited. Sorry. We have Amit Marwah, Chief Marketing Officer for Nokia India, and we have Ankit Agarwal, who is the CEO of STL Connectivity side. So to start with you, Rajan, just a question on where is the telecom industry right now amidst this COVID-19 situation, and do you see, is it good or bad for the industry?
So I think this is going to be, when we look back, one of the stellar moments for the industry, because in the midst of all of the problems and the financial stress the industry has been facing, the industry has stepped up in a stellar fashion in terms of making sure that our networks are up, performing at 99.99%, that the customer experience is good, that even with surges and changes in network patterns, the networks have performed. And by and large, I think people are now recognizing how important and how much this network contributes to the economic and financial and social health of this country. So I think we've entered into this area where, unlike the usual utility where you kind of flip the switch and you expect everything, people now realize, oh my gosh, you've got this industry which is facilitating just about every major item of enterprise connectivity and being able to work from home. And so all of this is being made possible by our friends like Balaji and all of our other operators who really, I mean, hopefully you'll get it directly from Balaji, but you'll see the extent of how this industry went ahead in spite of the financial issues that we've been facing and the fact that the government has not really been, kind of very much forthcoming with the things that we've been requesting for years. But I think the headline for us is that we have delivered, and more than delivered. And I think people are now recognizing the infinite value of our investments and what has been happening in terms of the scale and scope of what we've implemented as our networks. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Although I'm not a fast bowler, but you are a kind of unparalleled opener. So you always hit hard. So Meanwhile, we have Sachin Kalantri also joined us from Qualcomm. Welcome, Sachin. So my next, panelist would be Balaji. So Balaji, over to you. Again asking the same question, but if you could, give us some deeper insights into what exactly have you done almost in real time to support your customers, be it on the enterprise side or the individual customers. Also, if you could, kind of take us to some of the, challenges you face, essentially some restrictions due to lockdown or maybe movement of personnel, movement of other equipment and other things.
Thank you so much, Faisal, and thank you to all the uh, folks that have joined on this particular panel and in the attendees. I think it shows the passion that all of us, whether they are panelists or attendees, have for this sector and its critical role that it's playing. And I think Rajan said it very beautifully and eloquently, so I won't repeat some of those points. But I just like to say that the role of telecoms has actually gotten even more important. And I would say the entire ecosystem has stepped up, whether it's the operators, whether it's the tower companies, whether it's the equipment players that Amit represents, or whether it's the fiber companies or the ones that provide, which Ankit and others are representing here. So I think the entire industry has stepped up. Clearly, the focus on the operators has been a lot more stark. There's been significant increase in volume of voice and data that happened due to the work from home situation. The demands were huge. Yes, we just had to forget about the issues on hand relating to financial crisis and focus on what we need to do for the larger goal that the government had for us. So I think the central government, the Honorable Prime Minister and the entire government has been stellar in terms of taking very decisive steps in an extremely difficult situation. And needless to say, they prioritized first life and life alone. And then, of course, livelihood is what the focus for the government is also at this stage now that India has done so spectacularly well thanks to the government's intervention. And they were very clear from day one. They said, look, telecoms is a very, very critical service, an essential service, and that we needed to be supported. But it's been a challenge. Skeletal staff, our people are our heroes, in my view. No different than the frontline staff that is out there in different essential services, taking care of what needs to be done, forgetting about their own personal safety. They've been out there making sure the networks have been manned and handling a very, very huge increase in data traffic and voice traffic, as I mentioned before. That has included making sure that wherever necessary, using new technology like massive MIMO at a scale not witnessed anywhere else in the world. My company, Vodafone Idea, as well as the rest of the telecom operators, have stepped up to make sure capacity has been increased. We've set up virtual war rooms. Literally, the working from home or even from the field has made, for most of us, because we're a essential service, literally more work than we would have done in a regular environment. I can assure you that there is no day in the week that we aren't working as a community of operators, and I know some of our partners equally share the burden with us. That is something that is almost a given. Now imagine to take this traffic, it's just not about providing, in many cases, the only window to the world, the lifeline or blood of people to stay connected with their near and dear ones, but to work as well. On the enterprise side, and Faisal, you mentioned that very well. Now, to make sure that we provide solutions for them to stay connected with the business activities, to make sure that integrated business connectivity and continuity plans are put in place by our team in conjunction with our enterprise customers is an important thing. We've deployed many suites of digital tools that allow them to continue to chug along. We're making sure that our staff, as I said, does stellar work. I can tell you cases after cases where people have toiled over hours, traveled across multiple police cordons and district administration cordons to reach places where there was network congestion, or if there was a fiber cut, or for that matter, if there was any network upgrade that was required to be done in order to ensure the congestion was dealt with. There are many stories of what I would say silent but absolutely stellar work that's been done. And as industry, we've stepped up. We've ensured that our customers, those who can have access to digital care and self-care on one end. For customers that are at the lower end of the pyramid, we've ensured connectivity by providing them some free talk time and free incoming during this lockdown period. And clearly, we, as I said, are very thankful to the Prime Minister and the government for having taken decisive actions to keep our country at large safe and our citizens safe. And so, in that spirit, we have done a lot of work in order to make sure the messages of the government and the health authorities on how citizens can stay safe has been carried out by us in a huge measure. So I think the defining moment for all of us in this country and for us as an industry. And I would say a huge thanks to not just our frontline staff and our employees, as I said, who are our heroes, but everyone in this sector, as I said, whether it's the tower companies, whether it's the distribution partners, whether it's our digital care and customer care partners, whether it's the equipment players, whether they are the fiber and the deployment companies, all of them have done a fantastic work in order to make sure that this engine of telecoms, which is so critical for our country and our economy, has been working so well in spite of many challenges.
Okay. Thanks, Balaji. Again, kind of to adding to these insights, and I think we will have a lot of stories from you to hear about. Now, moving on to you, Amit. You are one of the you represent the community which is supporting Balaji and definitely other operators in making this happen. So what kind of essential things you saw happening from the equipment side, from the network side? Did we notice any increase or spike in demand of some particular equipments and all that? And how did you manage? Were you able to kind of move them easily? And also, if you're also managing networks, you're offering managed services to some of the operators. If you could also kind of take us maybe virtually to that knock, what all madness was happening or is happening right now with those knocks.
Thanks, Faisal. So what I would like to say is, we use this term very often these days, saying that we have reached some unprecedented times. I hate that word now because it's been overused and misused. So I would call this as the new normal. I like that much better. And the fact is that we are in a new normal. And it is going to stay like this, and there will be challenges. We have not seen something like this in our lives. And maybe a few generations before us also have never seen it. Having said that, I think what it has discovered, like I think Rajan and Balaji already said, that we have seen that telecom becoming the backbone of running the whole country. So today, whether it's entertainment, it's using your phones or your home broadband, whether it is even medical services. I just did a video conferencing OPD with the doctor for my father-in-law yesterday. Works extremely well. Whether it is financial inclusion, and we've seen, today nobody likes to touch notes, and we are doing all our transactions on using wallets. Whether it is social connect, and we all have house parties, and we have the Zoom sessions, and in the evenings and drinks over. So we have actually discovered a new way of life, and I know we all don't like being grounded and put into a lockdown, but to some extent, it's helping us also to discover ourselves. Having said that, I think from Nokia perspective, I can tell you that we anticipated and expected this because being an international company, we had intelligence and we had the experience of other markets which were facing this much before us. We started acting much before. So I will tell you that our BCP plans had been tried and tested. BCP is like the business continuity plans, which goes for the NOC, for the factory, for operations which are critical, field force. We had run it with the like of Vodafone, Bharti, and Reliance and other operators in terms of actually doing a mock drill almost 2 to 3 weeks before the lockdown happened. So we were all prepared. We knew people had softwares on their laptops. They knew if they have to go remote working, how it has to be done. A VPN gateway was set up in India, in Mumbai, on an emergency basis, because we knew that that would help in the future. So IT systems were enhanced. And we had policies. We had a COVID war room that was set up. We were meeting every, almost alternate days to find. But I think above all, what we were concerned about was the safety of our employees, as well as the safety of the employees of our partners. And I think we were giving a lot of focus on that. Having said that, I would say that all this resulted in what we see right now, that we got networks working extremely efficiently with the skeleton staff that we were able to manage, with remote working that we were able to manage. And I think the whole industry pitched in. There was no competition, there was no threat, there was no fight here. Everybody worked together in order to make it happen. So I think it is an extremely great example of how India has kind of I don't think even in other parts of the world it was this efficient and well organized as it has been seen in India.
Great, Amit. Coming to you, Ankit, you also represent the same, so to say, community. So we have always been hearing about fiber is the backbone. Fiber is the backbone. So what did you experience on the fiber side, and maybe other elements that you would like to talk about?
Thank you, Faisal, and thank you to techARC for hosting us. I think the timing of this panel and the discussion is also very apt. As you put it well, fiber is certainly the backbone. It's has been discussed earlier in the panel. It's very clear that the networks are critical. It's not just work from home. It's almost like do everything from home. And as Amit just said, it's getting used to that. This is the way of life. I was seeing that one of the large companies, I believe TCS, said that only 25% of their workforce will actually work from the office by 2025. So it's a very dramatic shift when you look at the number of employees that they have. And this is what we're seeing from operators and large companies globally. One of the big shifts we've seen on the network clearly is that instead of the network traffic coming from large offices or corporate sites, it's clearly being very, very distributed because people are now having to take traffic from home. So I think we're clearly seeing that fiber to the home, fiber to the X, fiber to small cell, it was talked about MIMO earlier and other applications. So clearly a lot more fiber will have to go deeper and denser into our cities. And here the operators and the government will have to work much more closely to really simplify right away and all the issues we've been talking about. It's more critical now than ever before to get a lot of that smooth line to bring this network closer to the users. The second part we're clearly seeing in the network is that there's a huge surge in what we're calling dual network. So both the upload and download is starting to get significantly more important because all the other OTT platforms like your TikTok, like Zoom that we just discussed, all of it is leading to a lot more upload than we've ever seen before. And again, that means that you need to build your network for that kind of robust upload and download and low latency. We're seeing a huge surge globally in applications like gaming, for example, which also require low latency. So all of this is clearly leading to a very large investment that will be required. I'm very proud to share the last month to 2 months, we've also done a great amount of work in our own BCP plans. As part of essential services and support essential services, our manufacturing operations were granted permission despite the lockdown. We've been working with all the safety protocols and supplying to the telecom operators, not just in India, but also globally. In addition to that, today we are in maintenance of the army network, even in Jammu Kashmir, and even in such conditions, our company has been ensuring that the army network is up and performing well. So very proud of this, and we, as I said, very clearly see a shift, and operators globally, internet service providers and government now will need to work to significantly ramp up the fiber network.
Great. Now moving on to you, Sachin, which is entirely a bit different space where, I think you are closest to the customer in terms of, enabling it from devices point of view. And I have been kind of hearing a lot about at times, kind of why this devices, ecosystem should also be kind of designated as essential service, and something should be enabled on that side. What do you see is actually happening on the devices side? And with this Wi-Fi, increase, do you see now we should be very quick on Wi-Fi 6 as well in India?
Very good question, and thanks for asking that, and thanks for having us here, Faisal. I think just I want to reiterate whatever people have been saying on the call. It's actually a new way of working. If you look at our home is today an office, a school, even a telemedicine for being used for any ailments, etc. And entertainment has gone to a different level, mainly because the traditional televisions are not able to serve any new programming, so people are going to say broadband services to access any new content, etc. So in this type of thing, in these times, it's very important that our super highways, the information super highways, are preserved and developed and nurtured very well. The only highways which are working today are the communication highways. All other highways are empty, right? So this has become a very strategic infrastructure for the country. We have seen COVID-19. Hopefully, we will not be seeing COVID 2021. But if that becomes some way a normal, as some people have been predicting, we need to be really prepared. Today, we have seen number of things being done online to take care of most of your businesses, most of your deliveries, ordering, payments. A lot of things are happening. Many of these things are enabled by technology, by the infrastructure that has been laid out by our friends, operator friends, by the variety of devices that have been brought together by OEMs, etc., as well as the app ecosystem, not to forget about that. This webinar wouldn't have been probably possible without a combination of all of these, right? So it's very important to focus on all these. We do not have devices right now, ability to deliver devices, for example, some of our partners to homes. But imagine someone's smartphone getting conked off or someone's laptop getting conked off. It's a direct hit to their productivity. You cannot function. For example, in a home of 4, if you have 2 kids who want to do, say, attend classes, they need devices. Not every home may be equipped today to have those devices. Then you have workers who are working remotely, they need devices to be connected. So devices and connectivity both have been going hand in hand. I think telecom operators have done a phenomenal job given the resources we have done of maintaining and managing the connectivity. Of course, there is always a room for improvement, but given the limited resources we have, limited spectrum we have, it's always going to be a challenge. And the surge in data demand is phenomenal. I see some issues working from home in terms of connectivity, etc. But I'm sure those will improve over time. We will have a lot of lessons to learn from here. New ways of connecting devices is also going to emerge. For example, today the need for, say, 2x2 Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi mesh is felt even more than before, because earlier I had the luxury of taking my laptop to any place in the home, maybe closest to the router, and doing my work. But today I cannot do that, because in some other room my daughter might be doing a class, in some other room my wife might be watching a TV, and so on and so forth. So I have to be confined to one place in my study, and the connectivity better be good to all these experiences. So I think a lot of new things will emerge. We have done a phenomenal job. It's important still to maintain the norms which have been given by our government. Government knows that best in terms of maintaining social distancing and how to open up the lockdown, basically. But telecom will play a major role in times to come.
Okay, thanks. I think done with the first kind of remarks, opening remarks from each of the panelists. Now coming to you, Rajan, since you kind of front end industry and the government relations. So what role did you see government playing in this situation? Like, did you get all kind of support? what kind of changes were almost done. I have been like of reading every day, one or the other news coming in from your side, from COAI. So what exactly is happening on that side, and like if you could kind of take us through kind of some major things which have happened.
So again, thank you, Faisal. I think one of the stellar outcomes of this particular crisis is the way that the government and the industry has coalesced to work together. And so there were multiple operational aspects. So we had the DoD, we had MeitY, we had the state governments, we had the term cells who are the local representatives of the DoD, and we had the police force, all trying to enforce various and sundry aspects of managing the COVID problem. And so we had stellar performance in terms of interaction with the DoD in the first instance. They set up, in a sense, the equivalent of what Amit was talking about, a war room, and Balaji talked about the war rooms from operators and OEMs. The DoD set up an equivalent, and they set it up at the local level. And this was a great help because the local folks would obviously much more keen to listen to another government official. So we then at the Delhi Center were working with the DoD secretary. He was a great help. All right, we were working with the local advisors here in headquarters, and they were then passing on these messages to the term cells. The term cells were then taking this message and passing it on to the district magistrates and the police force. There were instances when our people were hindered in terms of the movement. Again, Balaji talked about this. We very quickly brought that to the attention of the DoD. They then immediately informed the term cells. The term cells sprung into action, talked with the police force, saying, here are the letters, here are the passes, these people are essential service, they must be allowed to move. And so very quickly, we got these types of issues out of the way. Another example was that we had problems at some of our municipalities getting our cell towers on air. Many of our cell towers were sealed. We started off, and again, these are statistics that have emerged from the DoD itself, over 800 plus BTSs, right, that were non-functional because of various issues with dynamics and municipalities. As a result of the DoD's help and the local municipalities' help, that number 800 was brought down to 70. You can imagine the impact that that has had in terms of bringing additional capacity to bear in our critical areas. So that was one of the very clear areas. Now, the second area was, again, where Ankit talked about fiber. Fiber is absolutely essential. We used to have 100 fiber cuts a day. Now, obviously, because of the limitations in road work and everything else, that came down to 7. All right. So again, well, you can see how these types of things that have been happening on ground in terms of working with the government. Again, TRAI, yes, you never hear except when TRAI, and us have some difference. Here's an instance where TRAI did go out, supported us, gave us permissions to file our statutory obligations later. The DoD did the same thing in terms of various statutory filings, in terms of cell towers and elsewhere, pushed those out and gave us time understanding this. So again, all of this are instances when we work very, very closely with the DoD, with the local term cells, with the local state issues. Most recently, all right, we've had to request the opening up of our retail locations, right, for recharging, our recharging retail locations. Again, with the support of our industry and our members, we wrote. And again, this is an instance where MHA stepped in and clarified that, yes, these are areas that need to be addressed, and these locations need to be opened because they meet a legitimate need of our consumers and our customers. And so therefore, please go ahead. And that information was passed on down to the states, and now we're in the process of opening those up. So here are examples of the very close alignment and working together of the government and the industry to facilitate. ETA, another one, I'm sure that will be close to the heart of the OEMs. This is permissions for our equipment to come into country in terms of getting permissions, right? That was getting hung up and stuck for about a month. We were not getting permission. We went to the DoD, we went to the secretary. He very quickly decided that he was going to help us and move that forward. And so those permissions came through. When our networks were getting impacted, we went to the DOT and the secretary and requested him to have our streaming service companies go from HD to SD. Again, they stepped in and helped the industry, and the industry worked together with the government to do that. So a plethora of instances of how very closely we work to ensure that the health of the networks was retained and the customer experience was where it ought to have been.
Great. Thanks, Rajan. I think yes, this time we have so COVID has changed to COVID. I think for industry and the government this time, and we are seeing that everybody is kind of benefiting from it for sure. Coming again back to you, Balaji. You gave us a lot of examples. Any specific example where we could kind of highlight how some enablement is being done by telecom for other industries, for other sectors of the economy, and any kind of numbers or measurements we have of that impact?
Yeah, I think I would say our network heroes, and I must say I'm starting from there for a purpose. We've had field engineers, literally go in very, very difficult situations, from places like Chakradharpur, going to places like Sajgar, Alam. I'm sure some of these places most of us wouldn't have heard of. So there are names like Pradeep Kumar, there are names like Vivek Jha, Vivek Kumar Rao, people that have traveled, hours and kilometers, stayed overnight on upgrading networks. Now, some of this was absolutely necessary because without this, there was no way that we could have had the uptimes that we could maintain on one end for our customers, and on the other side for our enterprises that needed to kind of be working full time. Now, there have been instances where there were complaints sometimes received from remote bank locations of operations. There was an MPLS link because of some fiber cut somewhere had to be dealt with, and an operation to one of the remote branches was being affected, and our engineers basically made sure that they ferried over, got to the place and resolved the problem in a timely manner, and so the essential banking operations could be kept up and running. The entire digital infrastructure that we as a country are so proud of, which allows for digital payments, which have significantly increased, is another example of what we have done as an industry to facilitate the same. I think the examples that were given by Amit as well as other colleagues on the panel about telemedicine, education, and so on are stellar examples again of how we've added significant heft to the efforts of the government to keep as much as possible in these difficult situations the nation running. And I think on the business side, we've really worked with the agile process and focusing on providing very easy to use apps for consumers on one end, as well as business platforms for small and medium enterprises. We provided collaborative products which basically provide cloud-based solutions, whether it's from the Microsoft or the Google Suite or whatever, to make sure that those happen. Making sure that video conferencing and cloud-based storage is available on very, very affordable basis to our enterprise clients has been a very, very strong focus for us, because in our mind, when we put our customers first and we put them at the center of all our efforts, then automatically we do the things that we are supposed to do and the right things to make things happen. Our security solutions is another area that we've really stepped up a lot of effort into, to make sure that as you now start working more and more on digital platforms, that our customers as well as our enterprises stay safe. The quantum of recharges has gone up almost double on the digital platform. Further, we've come with, I told you, besides the free airtime and the incoming free, we've actually facilitated things to make it easy for people that want to contribute. So we started this whole online recharge campaign so that people could gift recharges to those that needed, who did not possibly have either the means, or because, as Rajan said prior to this recent clarification, some of the offline retail outlets were closed. And so people wanted to make sure they could gift recharges to friends, family, or people in need. And so we made sure that we could facilitate such applications which were designed real time to work and provide relief to larger communities. So I think that's one thing, and maybe there are so many countless examples where hospitals, clinics, frontline staff, we've basically, wherever there's been a new ward created or a new temporary facility created for handling the pandemic patients, then immediately we made sure that coverage reaches there, adequate and more is available. Diagnostics, radiology reports, the kind of things that are actually happening, and we see it as requests coming in either from government or from the frontline organizations that work in the health space. And we are making sure that we prioritize them to get the facilities that they need to make sure that detection and prevention and everything else in between is taken care of using networks as the foundational platform on which all these applications and people are working.
Okay, great. Now moving on to you, Amit. I just want to understand from now future-proofing kind of thing. What are those 4 or 5 things which we should be now working on right now? And also would like to understand from you, was there any kind of on-the-go solutioning done by Nokia for any of its customers, which is helping right now services?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. While this was all going on at a global level, we understood what the whole demand and need of the operators and the end customers is going to change, and is changing very fast. So we have very quickly done a solutioning or a portfolio realignment in 3 categories. The first category is secure, the second one is scale, and the third is simulate. So secure is right now the priority, and the need is to secure the networks of today. And what are the things as a vendor we can do? What are the things as we can recommend to an operator? And I'll give you examples like software features for enhancement of capacity. Balaji mentioned massive MIMO as a technology of using the same site to give more. Spectrum aggregation and turning on, moving from 3G to 4G, and thereby increasing capacity. So those are things which are secure, which you require right now in order to keep the networks running in this enhanced capacity mode, at the same time scale them in a limited fashion. Then you come to futuristic needs of what is going to change. And I think what is going to change very soon is the way we look at networks. I think BCP plans are going to be very important. I think going forward, I think that will be the top priority, and one of the main things that anybody will be looking at whenever they are buying any part of a solutioning. Analytics and automation will become extremely important. Voice over LTE and voice over Wi-Fi kind of solutions will see much more traction and demand and need to happen. You will see a need for doing emergency alert, PPDR kind of solutions, which are basically, networks for emergency, which will require to be done, and there'll be an acceleration on that. My personal feel is that we will see a lot of acceleration also on technologies like Internet of Things, which will enable things to happen. For instance, we have already started seeing some big demand of drone applications. So, surveillance through drones, doing site surveys using drones as an application. And I'm sure it will lead to deliveries and other things also. But what I'm trying to say is that the need will make things change. And from an application perspective, I think we will see a huge acceleration in solutions like e-health, solutions like fixed wireless access, solutions which will require remote surveillance and big bandwidth to happen, cloud robotics, industry 4.0, all those things which we have been talking about in the future, I think will become much more relevant looking at the situation today. immersive experience, video conferencing, doing 3D kind of video conferencing, those will become a norm because we will not be able to travel and things like that. So that's where we think the priorities of the whole world will change.
Great, Amit. Ankit, coming to you, what Amit just mentioned and what Balaji and Rajan also talked about, that essentially needs a good fiber footprint in the country. Okay, and we know what kind of issues we have been facing at times to kind of make it happen. So what would you want to be changed from kind of forward-looking point of view in terms of regulations and maybe some other elements which could make it kind of happen very fast?
Sure. So I'll start with the proposal, which I think my colleagues in the industry will appreciate. So I was just seeing that for healthcare in the budget, there's broadly about 60,000 crores allocated. For highways, there's about 90,000 crores allocated. But for telecom, there's an income of about 60-70,000 crores. And I think this whole experience with COVID and, as I said, do everything from home will, I think, make the government rethink that, if this is kind of the enabling infrastructure for, health, for education, and for all the other budgets that I have. Maybe we, while highways are important and healthcare and doctors are important, maybe this is equally important where investment is required rather than looking at it just as an income. I want to give two specific examples. Recently in January this year, the US government announced a plan for rural digitization for $20 billion over 10 years. And it's truly a benchmark for us to look at because it's essentially for bridging the digital divide between the rural and urban. And while our government has been working on BharatNet and similar projects, I think a lot more needs to happen. And government has to relook at both rural and urban connectivity and finding ways to fund some of that, because not all of that will be viable for the operators, especially looking at the financial situation of the telecom operators. So I think that is an important element. The other part, which is also a very hot topic, is 5G and 5G spectrum, etc. Again, I want to give an example of Germany, where the spectrum costs were 6.6 billion euros. And given out to 4 operators, as a result of which the operators, after winning the spectrum, have now delayed the launch of 5G now post-COVID as well, probably into 2021. So you don't want to have a situation where the cost of spectrum is so expensive that essentially there is no money left to invest in the networks, which will make the network itself a reality. So I think these are 2 or 3 kind of hot topics that government has to also look at. What has fundamentally changed in the way the world will connect going forward, especially India. What are some of the other governments doing, both the good learnings and issues other countries have had, and I think very rapidly change its way of working to enable this infrastructure. I'm very bullish on the operators themselves ramping up their network infrastructure. Fiber to the home, for example, just Jio has taken on a target of almost 30 million homes that they want to achieve. We're seeing ramp up even from Airtel, ACT. Even through the COVID, people are seeing huge jump. Just 2 of the operators we work with have almost looked at 30 to 50% jump. And one of our global partners, Telefonica, mentioned that they have seen more traffic in the last 1 month than they've seen in the entire year. So this is a kind of, very, very disruptive change we're seeing in the network. And we clearly believe that, the network has to upgrade, whether it's fiber or wireless or fixed wireless that was discussed.
Okay, great. We don't have too much of time. I'm just coming to Sachin with the last question, and we have already some questions listed from the audience. So Sachin, last question to you on this same thing, and which is again, future proofing. So we have been always kind of, talking about where are 5G use cases, where, is industry 4.0 relevant and all that. I think now nobody will ever kind of ask these questions. So what do you see, and what should be now kind of our approach to really kind of make this thing happen?
Absolutely, and it's a very, very pertinent question. I think many times we get mired into things like if there is no network, why should we have devices, etc. And the question could be flipped the other way as well. If there are no devices, why should I have network, etc. But I think it's all should be driven by the need and the use cases, etc. Right? And this pandemic, however unfortunate it may seem, has thrown open the need for these kind of things, right? We have a critical need in terms of enhancing our broadband infrastructure, both in terms of broadband to the home as well as to devices. Then we have the need of enabling newer use cases. For example, virtual reality based use cases which can enable your conferencing in such a way that it sounds real, much more real than what we are doing today. There can be telemedicine where a doctor and patient is communicating as if they are sitting next to each other, those kind of things, and guiding the patient to take measurements in a certain way or do something on behalf, even while remotely sitting. Because today, if I call a doctor may ask me, do you have fever and cough? Okay, go to Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, don't come to me, or that kind of stuff, probably, right? I'm not demeaning the importance of doctors. I think they have been doing a phenomenal job in terms of supporting this pandemic. They are the gods on the earth. But what I'm trying to say is, if technology can help resolve those kind of issues, etc., nothing like it. We have always been constrained with capacity. That can also be resolved by having 5G there. I don't think devices, technology, infrastructure is an issue right now. It's out there widely in abundance. What we need is a local wheel, basically, throughout the ecosystem, starting from the government all the way to the operators, to the infrastructure providers, to people like us, app developers, etc. And when we were at the juncture of launching, bringing 4G, that time also a lot of people questioned, why do we need 4G? 3G is sufficient, right? But over the period of time, we've seen so many new use cases have come up. The ecosystem has come up with so many things which were never heard of, right? So similar use cases will come up for 5G as well. There is always a vision we have to paint for the entire ecosystem to marshal this forward. If you look at just towards our neighboring countries, the major countries, they have been investing heavily in 5G, heavily, crazily. I mean, we heard a couple of examples from Ankit as well, US and Germany, etc. But look at our neighborhood itself. And the whole focus is to prepare the country for any kind of situation, basically, where people's productivity, work, connectivity is not suffering in any which way. So I don't think technology is a barrier today. We have to make sure that the collective wisdom and the collective will of the people and government comes together to make this happen.
Okay, great. So now coming on to some of the questions which I have already gotten from audiences. I think one of the questions which Rajat Suri wants to ask is about the upcoming 5G plans of major players. I think do we update on it? I doubt this is the time to kind of they would have any plans. I think everybody wants to jump. That's what we could feel. But when and how it can happen, I think right now that's not the kind of probably discussion to have. Another question we have from Rajesh.
Faisal, I can only say one thing, that as operators and technology providers, we have been working with the government. There's been plans for trials. I suspect once everything is a little bit more to normal, those trials will start to be put in place between the operators and the technology players, and therefore, to that extent, the benefit of that would start to accrue to us.
Great. So another question we have from Rajesh Williams, which is about, do you think that COVID-19 pandemic will discourage the growth of wire and cable and the telecom industry?
I can probably take that. I think, as I mentioned through the course of the panel, if anything, we have been termed as essential service by the government even through the COVID. The entire industry of wire and cable is actually ramping up the capacity within the safe social distancing norms to meet the urgent requirements of the operators. and service providers, etc. So I truly believe that for India and also for globally, the requirements for the wire and cable will increase, and we will have to look at ways to deploy the fiber and cable in a faster and more cost-effective way, and that's exactly what the industry is working on.
Okay, I have a question from Mr. Manoj Tandon. He wants to, know that the crisis proves the importance of FTTH and 5G hotspots. Just a second, it just popped up. Too many. Yeah. So many myths are broken around working from home, which may become new norm. As Ankit, you were already talking about, what will be the impact of impact on telecom industry and focus areas to serve the new norm? Well, maybe Ankit, you or Rajan or Amit could take.
Rajan,
You're on mute.
yeah.
Rajan, you have to unmute yourself.
So I think a couple of things have emerged, and both Ankit and Sachin and have highlighted this. Right away is going to be absolutely a critical issue. I think what we have seen, people recognize that, look, when you are having this new configuration, working from home, working from our residential areas, you can't be saying I can't have a tower in my backyard, I can't have fiber coming to my home, I can't have this. And so I think we have to begin to realize that without the appropriate infrastructure becoming an ingredient, we've got to start looking at this like water pipes and electric wires in our homes and in our streets and in our places. Without this, I don't think that mindset change has to happen in order to go forward. And I hope that will happen at the municipal level, at the government level. Ankit pointed out this whole notion of saying is that government has to see us not as an extractive industry, but as an investment industry to help grow this. I think that is clearly one of the things that we have to take a look at in terms of going forward. And I think the second area is that we have to begin to start asking the question, why can't we do BPO from our rural areas and semi-rural areas, right? This was right, and I think this is an area that we should take a second look at, saying whether can we push out the distribution, both of our networks and the people who are participating, so that if people can work from home, there's no particular reason why, if we provide the appropriate infrastructure, that group of people can't start working. And the third point is that we are getting to realize that the woman workforce, the gender inequality and imbalance has to be addressed. So the rural divide, but also the gender divide, and this notion of having the right of way to get our networks, both fiber and towers, into the appropriate areas is absolutely, hopefully, a critical learning that emerges.
This is very kind of strange time, when earlier we used to talk about make your employees feel homely at office. Now we are talking about make your home feel like office, So very, very kind of reverse situation happening. So I have a question from Ankit Jain from ICRA. Given the financial stress on the telecom service providers and the industry and the AGR issue related pressures, how do you think the fiber deployment will be done, and will the pace of deployment meet the demand surge? And I think we have a similar kind of question from Priyanka from Standard & Poor's. She wants to specifically know if Vodafone would be able to kind of, pay the dues post-COVID. How is it making it more stressful or not?
I think it's pitched to him,
I think Rajan, you could talk about the industry.
Okay, all right. I think this was, a googly that faced the industry vis-a-vis the AGR. We've been agitating about this for 10 to 11 years, saying fix it, fix it, fix it. Unfortunately, it didn't get fixed at the policy level and at the regulatory level. In fact, the regulator had suo motu taken a decision to say, please change this to redefine the license conditions so that we don't have this overhang. It wasn't done, and unfortunately, we are in the situation where the Supreme Court has issued its ruling, right? So I think, yes, this is going to suck up a lot of resources from the industry, which should really have been invested. Now, I think again, Ankit pointed this out, and I want to reiterate that without fiber, guys, this whole issue of the quality of experience is going to be a pipe dream. We have to fiberize our cell towers. We have to fiberize more and more of our locations, and we have to ensure that the fiberization stretches into the home. Either it's Cat 5, Cat 6, whatever it is, that the type of cabling inside our homes is going to be important. Whether we have routers, mesh routers, all of this is going to be critical. And so, yes, the government is going to have to look at these special purpose vehicles. One of the things that we've said is that if the investment in fiber is going to happen, the USO fund is sitting there with approximately 51,000 crore rupees. And it's being done in our mind in a very inefficient way by giving it to BBNL and the BSNL, and they have shown time and time again they simply can't measure up to meeting the timeframes and the deadlines. All right, so I think the realization is coming. Give this money back to the private industry and make sure that there is appropriate support for the industry right away. And in those instances when the rate of return is inadequate, to be able to support this from the USO fund, or create a special purpose entity that owns the fiber and leases it out real time to the operators as and when they need it. All right, so these are all things that have been mooted. I think it is high time that we revisited this and say, what is the most efficient way of fiberizing our networks? Absolutely essential and critical.
So I'll just add to what Rajan said, to say that we clearly see one important development from the infrastructure perspective, which is essentially the fixed and mobile convergence. We're seeing operators in India just start to do that, but operators globally are really looking at the cities, their main cities, and saying we must do carpet coverage wherever we get access. So cities at the central level or states are giving carpet coverage, grants to operators to deploy the fiber. And essentially what then the operators are doing are putting a fat pipe of fiber. So for example, Verizon is doing 1700 fiber in a cable, where typically our operators would be doing between 50 to 100. So this is a big shift when they're saying, let us, if you're getting permission one time, we put this fat pipe of fiber across the city for multiple services, which is essentially, of course, for tower connectivity, for small cell connectivity, fiber to the home, fiber to hospital, fiber to schools, and then also for smart cities. And all of this is getting converged on the same one fiber, which is in a ring architecture. In addition to that, we're already seeing examples of that in India. For example, we deployed 2 smart cities, one in Kakinada and Gandhinagar. And those have actually become the central nodal places for the state authorities, city authorities, to come and monitor almost an emergency response center and also a public announcement center. So clearly that same infrastructure today is becoming so critical for the government for all the safety norms that they want to practice within the city. So this convergence is only going to grow, and all our operators along with the government will have to invest in a synchronous way with this right of way and everything for the towers to come across the cities and the small cells. I mean, on average, we believe for every tower we have in the country will need 3 to 5 times number of small cells in the country. So that takes you already close to, between 1.5 million to 2 billion tower, 1.5 million towers to 2 million towers that we would need small cells. So this is what is we see as a network coming in very, very soon, the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, so just one comment here. While I fully agree, Ankit, with you and also Rajan, that fiber is a must and it has to be done and it has to be done very fast. Fiber deployment takes time, and I think it's time that as an industry, as our government, as DOT, they look at the E and V band, which is an interim solution in order to get to the home faster and in a more robust way than what we are able to do today.
Great. Ankit, we have one specific question for you from Anju Arora. It's about at what levels are your factories working right now? Are there any constraints you are facing?
Yes, we actually just put it out in a note 2 days ago. We are currently operating between 65 to 70% of our capacity, not just in India, but globally. Even in countries like China, Italy, and Brazil, we're operating. So government has been very supportive. As I said, even during the lockdown, as a supporting industry to the telecom under essential services, we have been granted permission. Our employees, a certain percentage of our employees have been allowed to come in and operate the equipment, the machines. We have been communicating very regularly with our customers in India and globally around our developments. And certainly we believe that, probably in the next few weeks, that we should be able to ramp up. Some of the constraints we continue to find are more in terms of supply chain, sometimes where we are sourcing raw materials, maybe those suppliers have constraints. Sometimes there are at local level some permissions challenges for people to travel within the cities because of the lockdown, etc. So I think. But overall, we see a lot of support from the government, and we're really pushing forward with all the social distancing norms.
Okay, I'll take one last question from the audience, and then we can have closing, remarks from each of the panelists. I have a question from Nitin Dahad, who is from E Times Europe. So he is asking, like, can we outline how you're looking at using devices and networks to enable widespread contact tracing to help economy come out of lockdown? Taiwan has done it, for instance. India definitely is a larger country, but this is going to be very, very important. Would anyone?
I can just make a quick comment. I think the government is already kind of talked about the Arogya Setu app, something that they've encouraged strongly to be adopted by all the citizens, because that is a good way to kind of work with it. Besides that, we are aware as operators, we are working with the government closely on initiatives that are driven by the government, working with some of the institutes of eminence and scientists that are coming up with the proper way that in a secure way, if some of the artificial intelligence based tools or data analytics can be adopted in order to make meaningful decisions to prevent the spread of the pandemic. So I think those are obviously being done with a lot of sensitivity by the government, because they are in the best position to do what is required to be done to keep the nation and the citizens safe.
And I guess there is also some discussion around temperature bands getting kind of being looked at. And I know of a couple of companies in India, they have already kind of, built up the solution very fast. So I think that's.
I would say the innovation and the startups which are, focusing on this is very heartening, and therefore the public-private partnership that the government has triggered off is extremely laudable and working, in my view, at the moment quite well.
Okay, I think with that we come to to close of this episode. But I would just want to have a closing review to the panelists. So my specific question would be, you may add whatever you want to. My specific question would be on the demand side. What do you sense right now? We know how the kind of the macroeconomic sentiment looks like, and it is definitely going to impact if this condition kind of persists. So do you see any impact on the demand side? And obviously, that can pressure or impact each one of us. So opening it with you, maybe Rajan.
Yeah, so very clearly, my point of view on this, Faisal, is that demand is only going to increase. We see this all across every network globally. We've never seen a reduction. So I think we've seen this. This will be the way forward. The whole problem that operators face is that the demand goes up like this and the revenues keeps coming down. And that's going to be the challenge. Globally, it's the same issue. And I think for India, we've got to get the government off the backs of the operators. We've got to minimize and reduce license fees, spectrum usage charges, the GST charges. These are things that we've said. Allow the industry to take this money, reinvest it back in our networks, and make the networks more robust, grow it, and enhance customer experience. So clearly, that is front and center of what we require going forward. The second one is, please, let's work together on the right-of-way issue, because without the right-of-way issues being in place and effectual, it's very, very difficult to get the networks going to where they need to, with the type of fiberization, with the type of backhaul, ENB bands, as Amit has rightly pointed out. All of this, in terms of ROW, must be addressed. So those are the two big asks from our side going forward.
I think Rajan rightly summarized it. Demands going up, investment requirement, new technology, new services, all of that requires significant investments. And I think some of the requests that we as industry and all the players have actually supported are on liquidity support, not just the support in terms of reduction in and rationalization of duties, but also liquidity support. If we have, each company has 8 to 10,000 crores of input GST credit stuck at a time when, as Rajan said, demand's going up and revenue is low because the stores are not open, or because we end up giving free services to some of the lower segment that need that services today. Then liquidity support in terms of either soft loans or refund. If refund cannot be done of GST credits, and we understand that, then soft loans help to provide liquidity support, which is very required because our industry is such that we need to go through that.
Yeah, I completely agree with whatever has been said so far, but I would say I think the question is not whether the demand will be there or not. We all agree it's going to be there. The question is whether we will be able to supply the demand. And I think there is a need for the government, for the whole ecosystem to be able to create, if this gets extended and if this keeps coming back, of how we can enable the whole industry in order to be able to, so which includes supply chain, manufacturing, the whole logistic as well as the entire chain to be able to work and deliver what the demand is. On the other aspect, I would say that I think there is an opportunity for India to take the lead, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's getting more localization of, having, let's say, telecom manufacturing, which has been said. But I think things have to come on ground to be able to see an impact on lower custom duties or whatever incentives are provided in order to be able to make that happen. There are people who are there to support, but the government has to do the enabling.
So I'll end on a positive note. So government, Prime Minister said, "Jaan bhi, jahan bhi," and so clearly, making the industry happen, making the livelihood happen is critical. Very proud to share our chairman has committed 200 crores to fight all of the COVID across the country, and almost 150 crores have already been dispersed by a company. So we're fully committed to getting giving support where it's required. And Amit touched very rightly also. I think the world will also relook at supply chain networks, and it's a great opportunity for India to step up. We hear numbers like more than 1,000 companies are looking to move out of China, and India could attract them. So we are also taking a step forward on 5G. We recently announced a partnership with VVDN to make 5G equipment in India. And we really want to take the step forward on that and bring Make in India forward. So I'm very positive, as has been said, the demand is there, it will only explode. We've not even touched on the cloud. So the cloud service providers like Amazon, Microsoft, all of them are seeing a surge of, Microsoft announced 7x jump in their network requirement. So I clearly see data centers getting built up more in India, telco networks getting built. And then the investment, as Rajan said, has to be balanced between private sector and government. But I'm very positive it will improve.
And I would like to just add to some thoughts. I think demand for data services, telecom services has always been there. Even without COVID, we've been a nation guzzling almost 10, 11 GB per user per month, which is one of the highest in the world probably, right? During COVID, it has increased manifold, and I don't see any let up even post-COVID, because people have realized the importance of connectivity, good infrastructure, etc. So it's going to go up and up. I think if we all look at telecom as a strategic infrastructure, strategic service for the country, and work together and try to help serve the demand and shape up the demand in such a way that we do not jeopardize user experiences, enable new services, etc. I think that will be a real good positive out of this, and we can really help build the nation in many different ways.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Thank my distinguished panelists. I would like to thank each one of you. I understand being a startup, it's really great of you all to participate. I think this shows your as well as your respective organizations' commitment to support startups. I really appreciate that. At the same time, I'm conscious of the fact that there were some technical issues and some of the people might have joined a wrong, link, which I apologize for. We will be making the report, recording available to that. Going forward, it will not happen. I would also like to thank Communications Today and Cisco for making this, event happen, and hope we kind of connect soon and keep this interaction on.